casual and totally impromptu. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Captain Meets, and today I am meeting Aynsley Lister, who is one of the more successful British sort of blues guitarists of recent years. When I sort of think of you, I maybe I'm showing my age here, but I sort of almost think of you as sort of the up and coming. But you've up and come now, haven't you? And sort of like are you sort of a bit more part of the furniture now, aren't you?
Yeah. Well, I suppose. I mean, I've been going for quite a long time. I mean, this is actually my 20th year of doing this as my job, if I can call it that. It's a great job. But yeah, I've been around for quite a while, and I think people sometimes, I do get called, young Aynsley Lister, but I'm 42, so I'm not, I'm not as young as people think. And I mean, I have people coming up at gigs and saying, "Oh, I saw you when you were 14."
Right.
I'm not. I was probably about 22.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've been around for a while. So.
But it seems like Davey. I'm rubbish with the names. Another blues guitar player that, again, probably was like 15, 20 years ago, started making the name for themselves. And in my mind, it's almost like that doesn't seem that long ago, but I guess it is now. And like you say, how many albums down are we now? It's.
I think. I don't know. I've probably done about 12 or 13.
I was going to say it's into double figures, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And I think 8 or 9 of those are studio albums. And I'm just busy at the moment, when I get any free time that I can kind of shoehorn into the day, writing a new one. Oh,
good for you. Well, look, let's go back to, I'm always interested in, what was that sort of magical moment or period during your upbringing where the guitar bug kind of first bit. So what was life like back in your childhood days?
I grew up in a really musical house. My dad's always been a huge music fan, and although he had a guitar, there was always a guitar around the house. I never actually saw him play it.
Right.
So it was very much, for me it was a toy. I just used to play with it and detune the strings and break them. But my dad always had the record player on, and it would be stuff like, Fleetwood Mac, Free, Blues Breakers, that kind of stuff. So kind of very much like the electric 60s blues players.
Yeah.
And I kind of just every night my dad would have the stereo on. And the guitar that he had lying around, I dropped it one day and broke the headstock. I think it was a Martin, I think it was a Martin. I just remember seeing a name that began with M on the headstock, and I
hopefully Marlin. And then that would be like way less heartbreaking. But
I dropped it and I was like, "Oh, I'm really, really sorry. I broke your guitar." And then I had nothing to play with, and so I bugged my parents for the next 18 months. Please, can I have a guitar? And I got my first guitar that was my own for my 8th birthday.
Oh, cool!
And because I'd grown up listening to all this guitar music, it's predominantly guitar solo. My dad really loves a great guitar solo.
Yeah.
And that's the stuff I thought, right, I'm going to do that. So I had this 3/4 size nylon strung classical, and I'm trying to play Hideaway or this stuff, this Eric Clapton stuff. And I was just doing what I thought was right, and I sort of worked it all out by ear. And then when I was 10, I finally got an electric guitar, Strat copy, Marlin Slammer. That's what it was, black and white Strat copy, because of the Clapton thing. And then I sort of realised you could bend strings and all this sort of thing. Kind of got to grips with that, and so I'm self-taught. I sort of just learned from listening to records and just literally on a string and finding the note that sounded right.
Yeah.
I didn't know anything about scales, any theory or anything like that. So I learned loads of, I could play Hideaway or some Freddie King stuff note for note, but I didn't know what a G chord was or a B chord. So then, I progressed, and then at school, my music teacher sort of picked up. I'd kind of got the hang of it, I suppose.
Yeah.
I was put into a school concert, playing some lead guitar, and then a guy in the audience, who was one of the parents, came up to me at the end and said, "Look, I've got a band. We play at the Bull's Head, and we're playing there on Friday. Do you want to come down? Get your mum and dad to bring you."
How old are you here?
I was 13.
Wow.
And so my dad took me down, and and they got me up, and I played with my Strat copy. In fact, no, I think I might have got my first Fender by that point.
Right.
And they, at the end of the night, they asked me to join. So I was kind of playing regularly in pubs from being 13.
That's crazy, isn't it? What was the? I mean, it sounds like your parents were super supportive of this.
They were amazing. Yeah.
So you didn't have this like. At what point did you? You know, was there that awkward moment where it's like, I don't want to go to college, or maybe you did go to college, but you know, I want to be a guitar player for my career.
Do you know what? It's weird because the idea of doing it for a living and a career never occurred to me. Nobody suggested it. And so I was at school, I stayed at school till I was 18, I did my A-levels, and then I just went out and got a job, just a regular job. And I didn't actually go professional till, I think, 21, about 21, 22. But up until that point, I was out playing gigs all the time and, you know, earning some cash from it. But the idea of actually being a musician for a living just never occurred to me. I just thought, oh, you know, you leave school, you get a job. Yeah. That's what I did. And then I got offered a record deal when I was, I think it was 1998, so I would have been, 22. And then it was a question of, right, you know, you can't go and do a day job because you have to go on tours. Yeah. And so I remember speaking to my boss, who was very understanding, really cool guy, and said, can I have an unpaid leave, please, for this 3 months and that 6 weeks? And he basically said, no, you're having a laugh, mate. You've got to do that or this. You know? And I was like, right, okay, I'll quit. And so I went off on tours, and as a support artist to start with. Yeah. I went around Germany, Switzerland, you know, all Europe, and went to States a couple of times, and kind of built up a name playing to other people, because I was a support act. So I toured with Walter Trout, I did about 2 months with him, Bernard Allison, did supports like John Mayall, Robert Cray, and some really kind of cool, you know, supports. Got in front of an audience, and obviously, because by that point I'd already been writing as well. I started writing when I was about 18.
I'm interested in, you know, obviously when you're growing up, I mean, I guess like you mentioned some names of Eric Clapton and Freddie King, and you know, so lots of people are influenced. I suspect most of us are influenced by, you know, the same set of 10, 15 guitar players.
10 like main ones, isn't it?
But where, you know, by this time, you know, you're sort of, you know, around about the millennium or whatever, it's like, must be quite difficult then to go, how do I put my own flavour on this, my own stamp on this, and not just be the guy that everyone goes, oh, it's the new Stevie Ray Vaughan, or it's the new... So how do you... Were you conscious of that then? I mean, or...
I suppose, you know? I suppose it was. I mean, the first guitarist I wanted to be was Eric Clapton. And up until being probably about 14, so between 8 and 14, I really didn't listen to anyone else. I listened to all the other guys because I was sort of learning all the songs, but the one guy that I would always go back to was Clapton. And that's why I got a black and white Strat. And then when I got my first Fender, which was a Japanese Strat, that was a red and white one, because in 1986 he changed to a red one. So everything Clapton did I wanted to do. And then I got into Stevie Ray, I was probably like 14, 15. And then I realised there was quite a few people doing the Stevie Ray thing, and especially when I started gigging, doing my own. Basically between 13 and 18, I was basically playing in covers bands, going to jam sessions. I got my own band together where I started singing for the first time, writing a few songs when I was 18, and that was at the point where I was like, okay, there's quite a few guys out there doing the Stevie Ray thing. So I went out and bought a Les Paul, because I didn't want to be another Stevie Ray guy. And so I went kind of down the kind of Clapton Blues Breakers type thing for a while, you know, with the Les Paul and the Marshall or whatever. And I suppose, you don't want to be, you know, if there's always somebody out there doing something already. And I suppose when I started writing, I suppose my writing has always gone beyond the typical kind of 3-chord blues thing. And although as a guitarist, I would say I'm still very much a blues player, my writer as a songwriter, it goes way, way beyond that. So I suppose, you know, I listen to a lot of, over the last 20 years, I've listened to a lot of other stuff that's not blues guitar, and it's just song and melody based, you know. So I'm really into like one of my favourite albums of all time is Rumours by Fleetwood Mac, because he's got some cracking songs, some really cool guitar, but really tasteful. So I suppose where the guitar kind of serves the song. So I kind of, my foundations are that kind of blues thing.
Yeah.
You know, I suppose, like the pentatonic thing, which is what I know now. I didn't know what the pentatonic was for years, you know. But yeah, I suppose in terms of getting your own thing, I don't know. I mean, to me, I'm just a kind of a mixing pot, like we all are, really. I'm a product of all the guitarists I've listened to.
Yeah.
But I suppose because as a songwriter, I'm listening for, you know, melodies and tune and you know, creating a mood and stuff. Then I try and do that with the guitar. And I've always been, I suppose, a less is more player. I'm not a flashy player.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I can't play all that fast stuff. But all of my favourite players, they're not, you know, like Clapton, you know, Peter Green, Paul Kossoff. They're all guys that can just play a few notes and you're like, wow, that sounds amazing.
Yeah.
So
and
I always
always
kind of,
the right notes for the song as well, you know.
Yeah. So I suppose in terms of trying to get my own thing, I mean, to me, you know, if you ask me, you know, do you think you've got your own thing? I still think I just sound like a product of all the players.
Yeah.
Ideally, you know, sometimes people come up at gigs and say, you know, you've got a bit of this and a bit of that, but you've got your own thing. That's probably the biggest compliment anybody can, I think, give anyone, any guitarist.
Yeah.
Really.
Who? I mean, you mentioned obviously Clapton and he being the guy that you sort of always go back to, which is great. As do I. It's just but you've worked with some pretty cool guitar players, you know, and you've shared the stage with some pretty cool guitar players over the years. Yeah. Has anything, you know, which of the, you know, anybody had a really profound effect on you that you've sort of met, you know, during your career? And in what way did it have, you know, was it sort of stylistically or technique or just life outlook type, you know?
I think, I mean, when I toured with Walter Trout, in sort of the late 90s, early 2000s, he was really good in sort of showing me, you know, you're doing this for a living now, you know, you need to kind of look after yourself, you know, pace yourself, don't go and do a 3-week tour and blow it all in the first night, you know, you kind of, you know, he taught me a lot of kind of, you know, the ways of the road, and he's a really generous guy, and he still is, you know, I mean, I saw him a couple of years ago, and yeah, he's a great guy, great player. Yeah. But he's very much got his thing that he does as a player. But I think probably what I learned more from Walter than anything was, this is a guy who goes out and tours relentlessly. You know, if you're only used to just doing a gig or 2 gigs over a weekend, then suddenly you go into like a 3-week tour where you've got 2 or 3 days off. It's a physically grueling. You're absolutely worn out, and sure. the whole thing, the mindset of it, you have to understand that you can't just go on tour and the first couple of gigs, you know, blow your voice out over the first couple of gigs because you've oversang and looking after yourself and all that. You know, I know that like the rock and roll excess, it's kind of, you know, everyone's done it and it's been done a million times, but you can do that. And a lot of guys still do, you know. But for me, I just thought, no, the reason I was there and the reason I wanted to be there is to play music. So I kind of learned a lot of that from Walter, because Walter, you know, he's done the drugs and the drink and stuff. Now he's been clean for years. Yeah. And I just saw the guy night after night just deliver. Yeah. And I thought, wow, that's a real inspiration.
I'd love to meet him. I was I'd always known the name, but I just never really listened to any of his music. And then one of the great things I think about, you know, modern sort of streaming platforms, and there are very few good things about streaming platforms, but it is, you know, it'll go like, have you listened to this? Or all of a sudden you're listening to something, you know, who's that, you know? I was a bit like, I know he's a sort of a iconic name, but he's never perhaps hit the heights of some of the players, you know, like Clapton or Stevie Ray or whatever. And I was sitting to him and thinking, this is, and he has got a thing. He's got his own thing. He's got a thing.
He's got a sound. He's got a thing that he does. And I suppose it's kind of a niche market. I mean, like the blues rock thing, like which is, you know, kind of the circuit that I've toured on a lot over the years. It is kind of a niche thing, and it's not, you know, it's not on Radio 1. It's not on TV every day, but it's great, and I love it. You know?
So it's super cool. How did you the singing and playing at the same time? Because I kind of think that. That enables, I think, so much more. It gives you so much more of an opportunity to make a success and make a career out of being a guitar player, rather than just being a great guitar player and having to almost always be sideman to someone else. Did that just come very naturally, or
No.
is that so? What were you like, guitar player first, and then you thought, do you know what, I need to sing, or how?
Yeah, basically that. I mean, I started playing guitar when I was 8, and like, you know, kids pick things up really, really quick, don't they? And so the guitar came really natural. I've never felt like I've had to work at it. It's always been something I've just enjoyed doing. Whereas the singing, I was going to jam. My dad, it's been brilliant over the years. Both my mum and dad have, but my dad used to take me to jam sessions every Wednesday. There's this place in Nottingham, and I used to get up and play, and I didn't sing, and there'd always be someone else singing, and then you know, a couple of guys said, you know, you should get a band together, you know. And I was like, I don't sing. They're like, well, you should. I'm like, I can't. I'm like, well, try, you know. And so a couple of nights I tried singing. I was absolutely terrified, and it's something that I had to work at. And but the one thing that people said is, if you sing and you front it, you're in control. Then you can play and sing, do what you want. And then of course, when I started writing, you can write to suit your own, you know, strengths, and you know, so you kind of write, you know, kind of to order for yourself.
Do you write your songs to, you know, so that when you're live, you're sort of comfortable to play it, or do you not worry? You know, is that just how it happened? Because I always think of I remember BB King sort of going, I just can't sing and play at the same time. So it's like all BB King songs are vocal line, guitar bit, vocal line, guitar bit.
Well,
you know,
this is it, because, you know, essentially, I mean, I mean, for years, it's only about 10 years ago, I added keyboards to my live lineup, but it was just guitar, bass, drums before. And so I suppose, I would write, not really realising, but you write to your own style. You know what your capabilities are and stuff. So, and also, you know, you can do it in the right key. So I know where my voice sounds better and where it doesn't sound so good. So, you know, I can write in certain keys, and again, you know, like vocally, it's one of those things that I did have to work at it. But putting the time in was, you know, it was worth it, because I'm still here, still doing it 20 years later, and I can write songs, and I'm kind of in charge, really, of my own destiny, which is a you know, I'm very lucky to be in this position. But I think if I hadn't started singing, I probably would have played guitar, but I think my professional career would have taken a very different path. So I'm glad I did, and I do really enjoy it now.
Yeah, well, that's cool. Let's take a gear journey of not necessarily where we are now, but like milestone. So back in the sort of the first like decent band that you were in, was it just you had this Japanese Fender Strat? Japanese Fender Strat, and what kind of stuff were you using? I should have brought
it with me, really.
You still got it?
Yeah,
that's cool.
It was my main Strat up until about 3 years ago.
Wow.
When this one took over.
Yeah.
But it was. We actually, in fact, that Strat. I had my Marlin Slammer Strat copy, which was like the Blackie Clapton thing. And we didn't have a case, and I'd seen the Fender moulded cases you get in the 80s. Yeah. And I said to my dad, can we go in the shop and get one of those Fender cases? And we went in, and the shop owner was like, you realise the case is worth more than the guitar. He said, I can throw a guitar in with that for you if you want. And I think it was like $269 for this red Japanese Fender Strat and the Fender moulded case. I was well happy.
Oh, that's great.
And my first 3 or 4 amps were PVs. Because that's what
Bandits or tube amps or like classic 30s
not tube amp. No, I didn't get a tube amp until I was 18.
So you like PV Bandits then, or PV Express or something?
I had a PV Bandit 112. I had a PV Stereo Chorus 400. I had a PV Special 130. See, I can't remember all the models. These transistors, but you know, to me it was an amp that had distortion, had a reverb or whatever. And I did loads of club gigs doing that with my red Fender Strat. And that was me happy. And then, of course, because I was listening to all this blues stuff, you know, I was like, they've got these Marshalls. And I'd sort of go into the shop with my dad, and I'd plug into like an old 70s Marshall or something, and it'd sound amazing. But my dad said to me, says, they're unreliable, they're valves, very unreliable, stick with the PVs. They've got good reviews in the
I don't know. The reason I'm sort of smiling and reminiscing is exactly the same time you're sort of forging your professional guitar playing career. I was forging my retail sales career as like Saturday boy in Andertons. Yeah, we used to sell loads of like PV Bandits, and I remember they had like the little aqua blue kind of stripes, didn't they, above the, and you know, quite cool foot switch options, and and again, I think that was actually. That was for me anyway, like the real heyday of solid state. It was almost when solid state was like actually quite good, and people, and now it just seems like people almost the only reason to make a solid state amplifier nowadays is almost just to be the cheapest it can be.
Yeah.
Whereas back then they genuinely were trying to be an alternative to a valve amplifier, you know, and they were all right, you know, loud and reliable.
The stereo chorus 400 was a 2v12 combo, and he had this, I think, 4-button foot switch, and you could get this. It had a clean channel, a distortion channel, and it had a switch where you could get distortion out of one speaker and clean out the other at the same time. And I thought that was the coolest thing. And it had this chorus thing, and I was like, wow,
There will be very few YouTube videos out there with two guitarists gushing over 30-year-old PV solid state amplifiers.
I think if I was to plug into it now, I would have a very, very different...
I think if you put the chorus on and you went, you'd still get that big clean chorus thing. But you're probably right. The distortion sounds probably weren't as good as we think we remember them being. But okay, so what was the first tube amplifier then that your dad let you buy?
A Marshall JCM 900 head and a pair of 2B12s. I was, so this is when I was 18. I was driving at this point, passed my driving test, and I had a Ford Escort Estate. Now, you couldn't fit a Marshall 4x12 into the back of my car, but you could get a pair of 2B12s. I thought, well, that's
very practical.
That's just as good, isn't it?
Yep.
So, and it had to be new to make sure I had a guarantee in case because it's a valve amp, it could go wrong.
But that was the Marshall warranty. I always remember, like, they were in little sneaky small print used to go, and by the way, the valves are only warranted for 90 days, like that. And I mean, I get that, having sold amps all my life. You know, valves are just what they are.
They are,
just that, yes, they are not the most robust and reliable component.
No, they can last for years, and they can last for a week or a day. You know, and but. To be honest with you, that was when I was 18, so that was 24 years ago. And that was my first valve amp, and I loved it, and I took that on loads of tours and had it cranked up. I used to have it really loud, really, really loud actually. I think it was 100 watt that you could switch to 50, and I always ran it on 50 and I had it on about 8. And I used to get loads of complaints, but I thought it sounds great.
I had a JCM 900 1x12. I think that might have even been my first valve gigging amplifier. I went from like a Fender solid state thing, and I was in a band with another guitar player who had a valve amplifier, and it's just soul destroying being on stage where you've got a solid state amp and they've got a valve amp, because it's just like nothing. It's like a complete waste of time.
When I got that Marshall, I remember plugging in with my Les Paul and thinking, that's it. I can get the Paul Kossoff, you know, bridge pickup Les Paul straight in, that kind of Les Paul Marshall thing. I was like, that's it, that's the sound. And then I had that for years, and then I was on a tour. I think this must have been like about 5 years later. I was like 23 or something, and I was on a tour in Switzerland, and the thing packed up, and we had a gig the next day. So I went to the nearest music shop and said, "Do you do repairs? We've got a gig tonight." And I said, "Well, yeah, we've got a guy." So they took my amp and says, "Well, while you're here, while he's fiddling about, I think all the valves had just gone on. Have a look around the shop." And I found in the basement this old Marshall 70s JMP combo that had reverb on it. It's a really rare model, and
it must be.
I plugged into that and thought, wow, you can get the classic 70s like Marshall kind of Super Lee thing with a master volume and reverb. And I went up and said to the guy, I said, I said, "How much is it?" He says, "Oh, it's only been in the shop for a few days. We've not serviced it." He said, "Let me go and have a word with the boss." And he came back. He said, "Would you be trading anything in?" I said, "Well, I could trade the head in. You know." I said, "What deal would you do?" And he came back. He says, "We do a straight swap. That's the best we can do. Sorry." So I basically gave them a broken 900 head, and they gave me this working 70s JMP combo, and that was me for a couple of years. And then I kind of bought a few others, like I had a couple of old Fender amps. I had a piggyback bassman for a while, one of the brown 90s Vibroverb reissues, the 2x10 reissues.
Yeah, you don't see many of those, do you?
No, and great amp, and I've had a few over the years, and then in recent times I just ended up being a bit of a gear nut. It started about 10 years ago. I don't know what it was that started it.
Yeah.
About 10 years ago, I just started collecting amps.
So you've got an amp issue, have you? Rather than because it sounds like literally you've done the whole career with like a red Strat and that.
Well, I only got this 3
Les
years
Paul,
ago.
didn't you?
Yeah, a Les Paul and a Strat, and it's only 3 years ago I got this, just because I thought I've used the same guitar for all my playing career. I thought I just fancy something different, not because it didn't work. And so I had this made 3 years ago by Damien Probert, which he did very well, very nicely. But I suppose I'm probably more of an amp guy.
So how many amps you got then?
Probably about 15.
50. God, for a minute when the F came out, I think he's got 50.
Yeah, which is not loads.
15, that's quite a lot,
which
though.
Is not loads, but he's predominantly. They're all old ones.
Right.
I've got quite a few blackface Fenders, 60s ones, some old Marshalls, an old Ampeg thing. But I just like valve amps.
Yeah. I think you need a PV stereo chorus in there just to, if anyone's got one they don't want anymore.
Do you know what? I think if I see one on earbuds.
You should. They'd be like 100 quid, won't they?
I might just buy it.
Yeah.
Just for the crack.
But it has to be like a late 80s, early 90s model, because I honestly think that was them at their peak. That was in their prime.
Yeah.
So
definitely. Yeah.
But so you loads of amps. A few guitars, and obviously the most extensive collection of pedals we've ever had on a Captain Meets videos. I mean that is a wicked looking true bypass something board. What is it? Have you never been a pedal guy, or is it just currently not a pedal guy?
No, I've never been. I've never been a pedal guy because I suppose all the videos and footage I would watch of my favourite players, they would all just use the volume. And of course, back in the day, I suppose, there wasn't the pedals. The pedal market now is just ridiculous, isn't it? But back in the day, it was all, players would just use the controls on the guitar to either clean it up or drive the amp. And because once I got into the valve amp thing from the Marshall thing, then I realised that you can back off the volume and it cleans up. And I'm like, that's great. And so I'm so used to using the volume. I've never really found that many pedals that sound the same as a tube amp working. Yeah. Nice.
Yeah. I think that's probably a good point on that one. I know a lot of people do. Like the holy grail sometimes of pedals is what pedal can I buy to make my clean amp sound like a screaming Marshall thing. Yeah. And I'm not a big fan of that. I like using pedals almost because of the opposite, because it does give you a more compressed, more kind of smoother drive than you might get out of a Larry sounding.
Yeah, because obviously when you back it off, you get the level's going to drop and all this sort of thing. So what I do is if I'm using an amp that's got some natural overdrive on it, this is a master volume thing, so you can obviously have it cranked but not cranked, if you get what I mean. Yeah. And so I suppose the sound of like this amp in particular is probably more compressed than like a sort of a Fender amp or whatever. But it means I can kind of get all the variations from clean to crunch to crazy screaming whatever, just all with this. And I've always done that. And if I'm using a Fender amp, if I can't crank the amp up to 10, which you can't these days, can you?
Not I really, no.
Even a little Princeton reverb in some places, it's too loud because they want to mic everything up. So I have got a few pedals that I use, but essentially I suppose I'm just trying to create as amp-like sound as and I'll just have one. If I'm going to use an overdrive pedal into a clean amp, it would just be one. And then I suppose I'm trying to create the sound I've got from this really. So when I do fly-out gigs, I take my guitar, a tuner, and a couple of overdrive pedals. So I don't know what amp I'm going to get. It's normally like a twin or something like that. But essentially, I'm not a pedal guy. And I'm never as happy using pedals as I am into just.
I think it's. I love the fact that again it's. And I don't disagree. I'm a pretty big Joe Bonamassa fan.
Right.
Certainly a fan of his tone. I think
Right.
he gets great. And I'm always, that's his vibe. He gets old. He's been. The last probably 5 years is very much a Fender thing for him, but in the past it's been more of a Marshall thing. But he just cranks them, and he gets his guitars.
He's playing in venues where you can have a 100, high-powered twin.
Yeah,
I think that's what he uses, right? These big twin old tweed things, and he's cranking them up, and he's got the plexi screens, but he's playing. You're playing in like a 200 capacity club. You can't have a 100-watt Marshall going flat out.
A friend of mine just bought one of those plexi screens recently, and he's using it with his rig on a theatre tour, and he was like, I can't believe how effective these things are. They're about 200 quid or something like that.
Yeah.
I guess if you're travelling, it's still a complete pain in the arse. You've got to take some suitcase full of plexi everywhere.
Because the other thing is as well, it's like the sound's still got to go somewhere. So although it's not hitting the front row or the audience, whatever, it's going to. I've got a lot of my there's loads of people that obviously use plexi screens now, but the sound, I think it's still quite loud on stage, isn't it?
Right.
Like I say, if I'm using a Fender amp and I can crank it so you're getting some natural overdrive, maybe hit the front of it with a clean boost or a mild overdrive. Yeah. But if I can get away without pedals, I will, because I prefer it.
So right now on the Rift. This is a signature amplifier. I thought I'd seen this before, but I haven't. I was trying to, but so you've gone with something that is a master volume-y. Well, hey, it's a signature amp. You tell me what it is instead of me trying to guess what it is. So
okay, well, this is the result of. I mean, when did we even start doing it? It was 2014. I think we started working on it. And Chris at Rift and myself, we were talking, and we talked about the idea of doing a signature amp. Essentially, one box, one amp that has all the sounds in it that I would need on a gig. And for me, essentially, I need an amp that's got some kind of natural valve overdrive, but also cleans up. And basically, where I can just set the amp, have a tuner or whatever, and I can get all the variations literally just by the volume. And it's quite a big ask, really.
Yeah, it's a huge ask.
That's what I've done for years, and like I say, I've got I've used Marshalls, all sorts of other Fender amps and stuff over the years, and that's got a cool sound. I don't quite like that about it, and that's so it's I suppose it's trying to get everything in one box. Yeah. And we started doing it in 2014, and we got there.
So I mean, visually and I've just seen there's a bit of reverb on there and stuff like that. Yep. Is this a bit like that 70s JMP that you picked up in Switzerland? Is it that kind of, is it a Marshall, what is it, like EL34 driven, Marshall-y, vibey thing?
I think it's got EL34s. It's probably sort of along the British line of circuit, but it's got other bits. I mean, if you put this at the side of a Marshall, it won't, it's not good. It doesn't sound exactly like a Marshall, it sounds exactly like a Fender. It's just a combination of everything.
Can we? I mean, you've got it set with the preamp gain reasonably wound up, so you've obviously got some gain on tap.
What I do, I'll probably use it. I'll just actually show you. So. And then obviously as you...
So that was about like 3 on the volume, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was about 3. That was on about 8, I suppose. But I've kind of got everything I need, sort of, if you want it like a... And I've kind of got everything from sort of... But because it's quite, I suppose, more compressed than a very, very clean sound, although there is obviously a volume difference when I'm turning it up and down, it's not like night and day. It's kind of, in a live context, you know, if this is my rhythm sound... It's just enough to...
Are you going full volume then on that, or are you always...
I don't know.
Because I'm trying to remember who... It might have again been Joe Bonamassa was another one of those, like, he apparently, like, you know, tries to sort of goes to full and then kind of comes back one, and that's still the sound, you know, rather than always just going full out.
I kind of just use... I suppose I just use my ears, right? I mean, this essentially, it's almost like an overdrive control. And of course, if you go full up, it's going to be brighter than if you just back it off. Like you say, if you just back it off, it just takes that edge off. You know, so if I'm on the bridge pickup, you know, when it's full up, I just back it off. It's very, very subtle. And obviously you've got, you know, I have it wired so that the bridge pickup is on the tone control, so I can kind of knock a bit off. And I'll kind of just, so I'll always have the amp set so it's got probably a little bit more drive than I need. So I've always got that extra bit in reserve.
This sounds like a Nigel Tufnell quote, doesn't it? Like that. I've always got a bit extra. There's one more in it.
Yeah,
like
but I've actually got, I've always got two more because it's too loud, isn't it? So, but the only pedal I would use live is probably just a clean boost. You know, something that's just completely neutral. So it's just going to kick the amp even harder. So it's going to get even more compressed, and it means I've got more gain, so I can turn the guitar down even more. And I've kind of, and it works. It does the same thing. A good humbucker guitar does the same thing. It cleans up, so you can kind of get that nice, you know. You can kind of obviously turn it up and just get all the variations, you know.
I mean, it's like a 112 open back, so in the room it's got a lot more bass end out of it than I think perhaps some of the sort of closed back Marshall-y kind of sounds would have. What is it, 50 watts or?
It's 35 watts.
35 watts.
And that's running, I mean, to be honest with you, I don't really run it any louder than this on a gig. I mean, although the preamp's up at what, 7 and a bit, the master volume is actually, it's just over 2. And I think on a gig I'd probably have it at 3. And it kind of just gives me everything I need, really.
It's nice to hear an amp. A lot of amplifiers, I think, when the preamp gain's turned up that high and then the master volume is sort of choked down a bit, they go terribly fizzy. Whereas that still seems to have
that was the thing,
sound.
That it's kind of. I also needed something that, you know, I can get a decent sound at low volume. You know, because again, you can't show up with a 50 watt amp cranked. You just can't do it because someone's going to shout at you.
It's a great looking amplifier as well. I mean, I know we're going to do some. Obviously, we met Chris from Rift last year, and it's thanks to Chris that obviously, you know, he made the introduction between the two of us, which is cool. And we're going to look at some of his amplifiers in another video coming to this channel at some point soon, or maybe before. I don't know. That's a cool amp. It's a great sound. I do want to just before we sort of conclude. Is this also yours? This pewter colour?
This grey one. Yeah.
So this what?
Right. Okay. So.
Because I am a bit of a sucker for a Fender Strat.
Yeah. Well, I
as
suppose
you all know.
You know, that's obviously a bit of an unknown quantity, isn't it? So.
Actually, you know what we should do though? Actually, I do apologise. Quickly, just grab the white one, not to play, just to show. Because we were talking before the camera started rolling about, you know, is this a relic and da 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 da. And you were saying this 3 years ago was just completely brand new.
Yeah, it was Daz White. It looked like it had just come out of
That's
a hot
white.
wash.
Will that mean anything to anyone that was born after 1975 and doesn't live in the UK?
It was very, very white.
Would you swap 2 of those Daz White Strats for one of your
Okay,
old?
all right. It was this colour.
That's crazy.
Without the coffee stain. And yeah, this was, I basically asked Damien Probet, could you make me a 60s style rosewood board Strat? Older body, just pretty much standard issue stuff. I want it in an Olympic white, and it was, like I say, that colour wasn't relict, it was pristine. But because it's been painted in like the nitro, whatever, it's and it's been on quite a lot of flights in the last 3 years. I suppose that the temperature difference from like really cold to suddenly hot makes them crack, right? And I actually saw this right. I got off a plane where this had been in the hold, obviously really, really cold. And 10 minutes later, we were at the hotel. And I opened the case, and because the room was like 20 degrees or whatever, I could actually see it actually happening in front of me. I was like, oh my God, what's it doing? What's it doing? And because I didn't really know much about that. And then I sort of phoned up Damien. I said, it's all cracking. I thought that it was the wood or something. He says, oh no, don't worry. It's just what happens. And then all the yellowing probably happened from about 6 months on.
White guitars do that yellowing thing, don't they? And there are some types of white paint that they go yellow because they don't get sunlight, as opposed to even because they do. So I think white is one of those colours that reacts.
But under the pickguard, it's still perfectly white.
Yeah.
It's funny, but and it's actually gone pink at some point.
No, I think it looks great. I mean, it's funny, isn't it? Because the whole nitro thing, you can imagine, can't you? You know, people who've just spent thousands of pounds or hundreds of pounds, whatever, on hard-earned cash, and then their guitar starts to crack. You think, certainly back from what I understand, back in the 60s, the move away from nitro was because people used to go, oh my God, what's happening to my guitar?
Because there's a lot of old 60s Strats that have been refinished, probably because people thought, after 3 years it looks terrible.
I know, but now people pay a premium to have the guitar, it's aged
crazy.
like this. It's a funny old world.
It's crazy, isn't it?
It's a good shout, your case thing though, because that's something that our guitar tech often says, in terms of relative humidity changes and temperature changes. Keeping a guitar in a case is a great way to sort of keep it constant humidity. So, and the worst thing is, of course, if you know that your guitar has been either very warm or very cold for a period of time, so inside the case it's cooled down to that. To just then go in a really hot or cold, open the case in a radically different temperature.
Yeah, absolutely.
It will freak your guitar out. But in this instance, in a way that looks badass cool.
I think it looks great. And
how rusty all the screws. Is this like acid sweat or something?
Some of that, yeah. I mean, this pickguard was made for me by a guy called Mark Foley, who's got a company that making pickups, and these are called. He basically sent me the loaded pickguard,
right?
And I did try sort of several different sets of pickups in this, and I tried hot pickups and overwound ones, and in the end, I just decided this is quite a sort of a meaty, thick-sounding guitar, so I thought it probably wants something a bit more like a classic. Vintage wine. So Mark made these, they're called 59 Reserves, and he just sent me I sent him a picture of the Strat. I said, look, this is the Strat, it's looking a bit warm, could you make something that looks right? And I think he's got it absolutely
it's a cool looking guitar,
bang on, and it kind of just works. But interestingly, these two guitars, they've actually got the same pickups in.
Right, so you changed the Fender ones out for the Mark Foley ones.
I did. That had Fat 60s in when I got it. Which sounded great, but because this works so well with the 59 Reserves, I thought I'm going to get another set. But these guitars acoustically are quite different, and you can hear that through. So this whole thing, about what is it important? Is the wood important in a guitar? Yeah, I think so. And this was a real big kind of realization thing. It's not just the pickups; it's the thing as a whole. So,
I think that whole, it's a allegedly science finds it very very hard to accept on a electromagnetic style pickup that what this is can make any difference. So science says it can't, but every guitar player I've ever met, or 99.9% of guitar players I've ever met, are all going, well, I can hear it, so like something is where, and I don't know what it is. I don't think it's it's absolutely to just. I think every single component that you put on a guitar to one degree or another. I remember Billy Corgan recently saying he thinks he can hear the difference between different colours of paint. You know, you're sort of going like, okay, but you know, but I'm sort of up that, I'm kind of with you in the sense of I think the noise that comes out of there when you strum it is everything. To maybe these are 95%. I don't know what it is, but they are. To some degree or another, even if it's 0.001%, it is everything makes that noise. And then if you change, that's my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, my experience with this is just, like I said, this guitar acoustically is a bit sort of darker and thick sounding. That's a bit more sparkly, a bit more mid-scooped, but you can hear that, and those characteristics exactly the same through the amp. It's like, this is thicker in the mids, it's punchier, it's barkier, whereas that's a bit more kind of smiley face EQ kind of thing. But you can hear that acoustically, so it's...
Well, let's have a look at the pewter one.
Oh, right,
cool. When did you get that?
I got it last year in March.
Yes, March. What is it? Well, obviously it's a Fender Strat, but what's the detail behind it?
It's a Fender. It's a Fender custom shop. It's team built. It's not a master built or anything. And in the shop, it had been in the shop for about a year, and it had a tortoiseshell pickguard, but with all the white stuff. And if I'm honest, it looked terrible. I mean, to me, it's all subjective, of course, but I thought it looked terrible. But for whatever reason, I'd never seen this colour.
What is it, a 62 or something, is it? Or
I don't know.
I think it's just like a generic 60s.
I think it just said 1960 Strat on the documents.
Yeah.
And I just plugged it in, and it just had this sound. And the guy in the shop sort of said, "Oh, look, let me go and get you a better one." He says, "I know which the best one is in the shop." And he brought over 3 or 4, sunburst ones or white ones, which are obviously the common colours, aren't they, that most people seem to go for. And plugged these other ones in, and this one just kind of left them all for dust tonally. And he even said, he said, "It's the first time I've heard it plugged in." He said, "It sounds really, really good." So I bought it, and the first thing I did when I got home, I think within half an hour, I've got boxes of bits, and I just put this change of pick guard, and then I've tried a few different pickers, but because that's got the 59 reserves that Mark does, I just ordered another set, and they're in this.
That's cool.
And
it looks great, man.
I've probably played this more than that one for the last year, just because it's my latest thing.
Yeah.
And I did go on a bit of a journey last year.
It's got like the super thin nitro finish, so you can see where it sinks into like an ash body, isn't it, or something? And it's it looks
is also
great.
correct.
No, I mean I know we've just last September or something around there, Pete and I were coming up with more funky Fender custom shop ideas to do, and we did a 64 Strat in charcoal mist.
Right.
Charcoal mist? Charcoal something or other. Charcoal metallic. And I think it's going to look quite a lot like this. We've got the same kind of slab fretboard, rosewood fretboard on it, and I've got this horrid sinking feeling in my stomach now. Did we put a tortoiseshell scratch plate on them? But maybe not. No, I think we did just go parchment.
I think to be honest, that's just a personal thing, really. It's just for me, I just thought it would look better with a white. Well, it's not white, is it? This is kind of
like a parchment or a mint kind of scratch plate. Yeah,
it
looks super cool.
But yeah,
like I said, like Eric Clapton, I remember having in the 90s. He did, when he went through that sort of
board,
when he went through that sort of journeyman, his was like he had
with the lace sensors,
absolutely,
and his long hair and his kind of glittery guitar
super cool.
Yeah, I watched all the videos, got all the licks.
But and then more recently, probably John Mayer, a lot of guitars in that kind of colour. So
yeah, I've actually had a couple of people come up to me again and say, "I see you've got a Silver Sky." I'm like, "No, it's not."
Oh my God, that's like, I can totally understand people seeing a Silver Sky and going, "Oh, I see you've got a Strat there," but that's even worse, isn't it? You've actually got a Strat and people go, "Oh, it's a Silver Sky." It's like, no. But that's cool. It does look great. It really does look great.
And this was relicked when I got it, but it's probably got a few more dinks. I've probably done about 70 or 80 gigs with this now, so it's worn in. It's actually needs a really good clean. It's filthy, but it's great, and it just had this. It's nice and loud and resonant. It just rings, and it's just...
It is, big twangy sound,
It just
that one.
had... I mean, I tried about 60 Strats last year.
6-0?
Yeah, I went on a bit of a journey.
You did?
Because I'd been playing this one for a few years, which I love. I just thought, I just fancy one of these Fender Custom Shop ones, because I've seen a few in shops, a couple here actually, which I checked out last year. And I just went on a bit of a journey, and this one, for whatever reason, I don't know, maybe it was the right day or whatever, or the stars were aligned or something.
I think you have to find the...
You have to find your Strat.
You have to find your one.
Yeah.
I mean, it's certainly with handmade electrics and acoustics, maybe even more with acoustics, but definitely, you know, every single one is very slightly different. But if you get 10 people in a room and ask them which to pick their favourite one is, they won't all go, oh, that's the best one, you know. So it is very much about just finding the one that something magic happens. Well, look, I think it's great. Why don't you just plug that in, just like play like a minute noodle. We'll say goodbye. Although we should say, you know, really before that, what plans for 2019? What's happening right now? You said you were just about to start recording again, or?
Well, I'm just about to start writing a new album that I'll be doing with the band. So I'm just writing a load of songs for that at the moment. I've got a couple of tours coming up. A German tour, which obviously is useless for anybody who lives in England, isn't it? But
we have German people watching this channel.
Okay.
Yeah. Guten Tag. See?
I'm on tour in Germany early part of May. Then again in September for a solo tour without the band, and then again in October for another 3-week tour with the band. So there's loads of German touring coming up. Switzerland. The Swiss people watch this.
I think. Do you say Guten Tag in Switzerland as well? I think or Bonjour, or what, depending on whereabouts in Switzerland that you live.
I should know, really, shouldn't I? Just basically loads of touring, writing a new album. I've just done some recording in the studio the last 3 days of some stuff, some solo stuff actually. Cool. Which hopefully we'll put out. I need to sift through it and see what we actually captured, but maybe that'll come out at some point on a CD this year. But yeah, just writing, touring, and probably fiddling with gear, changing pickups, trying different speakers,
living the dream,
cranking it up every night, and
well, it's been a pleasure. So I can't even say it, but you know what I mean. AynsleyLister.com is where to find it all. Aynsley with a Y.
AynsleyLister.co.uk. Aynsley with a Y. AYNSLEY. I've got Facebook, I've got Instagram, Twitter, all that.
Well, we'll put the links underneath this video. But yeah, good luck with it all, man. And have a little noodle on that.
Well, thanks for having me.
Not at all. Absolutely not at all. And come back next year and show us how your pedal collection has grown. I look forward to seeing... when there's what will there be, like a tuner and maybe a wireless system on there or something really radical.
Yeah, you never know what can happen.
You never know.
Right, I'll just see if this is in tune.
Go on then.